We are now going to play Stump the Preacher. This is your chance to ask me questions about theology, Bible, life itself. By the way, the answer to life is 42. Anybody here read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Then you know that the answer is 42. So I can answer that one right off the hop. So now, Stump the Preacher. Come on, folks. Hit me with your best shot. Anybody have any questions? Somebody's got to go first. What does 1 Chronicles 13:25 say? Yeah. Actually, you can ask me what Mark 18:1 says, and I can tell you there is no Mark 18:1. So, any questions? Sure. We'll start with a question from Julia here.
She wrote them down. How many commandments did God give Moses?
We may be tempted to think that the answer would be 10 because that's the 10 that we focus on, but the actual answer is 619.
What are they?
First prize. You're bad. Actually, I was too quick to give that off. I could have answered that. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. The others are all commentary. Sure.
Who is the oldest man in the Bible and how long did he live?
Ooh, I believe that was, and I think John can help me out with this after when I say I don't know or if I get it wrong. I believe it was Methuselah, and I believe it was 978 years.
She has Methuselah. She wrote 960.
Oh,
You're close.
I was 11 years off though. Well, no, that can still be argued because Elijah is the one man in the Bible who didn't die, and we're still waiting for him. So, that's why.
She researched questions.
Good for her. Next question.
An explanation as to why we spend a lot of time and energy talking about Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt and the big miracle of God clearing the path across the sea for them. And yet when Joshua leads the Israelites across the Jordan, very little is made of that. The same thing happened. God parted the waters, stopped the waters of the Jordan flowing, and let the Israelites all cross. Now, why is that?
Why do we focus on one and not the other? Wow, that's a good one. Probably because, and this would be a hard question to actually say, to give a concrete answer to, but I'm going to hazard a guess that it's the fact that Joshua himself receives so little attention from us. We focus a lot on the story of Moses himself, on his birth to an Israelite, to have his salvation from death at the hands of his sister Miriam, who sent him off in the little boat made of reeds for Pharaoh's daughter to find, the burning bush, Moses meeting God at the burning bush, Moses fighting Pharaoh, the 10 signs from God brought about by Moses' word, and on across the Jordan, through the wilderness for 40 years in the desert, and then on the threshold. And interestingly enough, you'd almost be tempted to think that it was Moses that brought the children of Israel into the promised land because he's so prominent. But no, you're right, Lord, he didn't. It was Joshua, his protege, who did it. But if you ask people about Joshua, I'm going to bet most of us would only know one story. And we know it through an old African-American spiritual / Sunday school hymn. and them walls came a tumbling down. That, for most of us, is probably, we don't usually focus a lot more on Joshua other than that one story. There may be a corrective there. Maybe we need to, here in this place, take a good look at Joshua. Because it is a fascinating story. Joshua made the sun wouldn't stand still for 24 hours. Joshua did powerful things as well in the name of the Lord. And it was Joshua who brought the children of Israel into the promised land. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is mixed in your biblical with music.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, Azar, why did the unicorn miss the boat?
Because they were a dancing and a prancing and a playing in the field. Right?
That song?
Yeah.
She doesn't know you say yes.
Yeah, that is definitely it.
I'll forget that.
St. Patty's Day just passed and we heard it too many times. You can hit me with that one in September and you definitely stuck with it. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Jess.
What do you say, it's not a why question, it's what do you say to, it's not a
Okay.
what
So in other words, I can't be wrong here, right? Okay.
What do you say to people who take the word as written in the Bible as total truth, even though there is no gospel of Jesus, and then they dismiss the gospels as found in Deuteronomy 6:1? What do you say to those people who do not take up the opportunity to read the word of Jesus?
Well.
I was going to be Castle Nicaea, so this one's nicer.
Okay. This one's nicer, she says. It's a tough one. And I struggle actually, I'll admit, I haven't read the Gospel of Jesus. I've read some of the other Gospels that were found, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, but I haven't read through the Gospel of Jesus. What I would say to biblical literalists who say the Bible is true in all statements for all times, I would say that the view of life portrayed in that isn't rich enough. That God speaks to us, and for Christians, I believe the Bible needs to be an authoritative work. But not in the sense of proof texting, not pulling out a passage here and there. It needs to be authoritative, but we also do need to recognize that it has come to us through human hands. And what we do not understand is how the Spirit moved in that process. There were things that got left out. There were, for example, if I can just kind of stretch from there, the Gospel of Mary. One of the main reasons why it was discounted at the Council of Nicaea was because it portrayed Mary as the first of the apostles. It portrayed her as on par with Peter. And in the world of the 4th to 5th century, the idea of a woman leading the church was not accepted. So, while I say that the Spirit worked through the creation of what we have now as what we call the canon, which is your Bible that's before you, there were things that were also left out. And maybe they weren't left out because they were Spirit-led, but maybe they were left out because of the limitations of our thinking in that time. Recognizing that, 1,600 years from now, people are going to look at us and say, how could they have thought that? We are all limited in our thinking by each time. It's not that every age, any age is better than the other. Each age has its limitations. But I believe that some of the stuff got left out of the canon because of that. But yet God still works. And is it Spirit-led that in, 1946?
Yeah, I think my
Okay. that the Nag Hammadi documents were found, was that spirit-led? Is that an opportunity now for Christians to open their minds more and to question? And here's one of the important things that I would say to the biblical literalist. If you do not question, then you're going to miss not the boat, but a whole lot of boats. If you do not approach the scriptures, if you do not approach theology, if you do not approach church, if you do not approach life with a questioning heart, then you are going to miss so much. And we don't need to be afraid. Oh, will God be mad at me if I question this? God's shoulders are big enough. Would you have ever gotten mad at your kids if they asked you a question about something important? Now, you may get mad at them if they've asked you 50 times, why can't I eat my chocolate bar now? I'm talking from experience here. But when a child asks you a question about life, you're not going to be mad for the asking. Nor will God be angry or upset with us if we approach our canon and what's called the extra-canonical works with a questioning heart, a critical mind. We are not called in the church to leave our brains at the door. We are called to use them and to use them fully. They're a gift given to us. And we can even approach the stuff that didn't make it in the Bible with that same critical mind. Does that answer your question sufficiently? Beautiful. Any others? There's more. I knew there was more on the list.
What does the Bible say is the root of all evil?
Not money, but the love of money.
That's good. Alex said women.
Okay, we better be praying for that one away. Next question. Yes, sir.
Besides Jesus, who is the most talked about person in the Bible? And God, besides Jesus and God.
Okay. Thank you. I thought you were trying for a trick question there. Who is the most talked about person? Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it is not actually the person that we think it is, but I would argue that it's Mary Magdalene. And the reason why I say it's not the person that we assume it is because we assume, for example, in popular culture, that Mary of Magdala was a prostitute. There's absolutely no indication whatsoever. There is a Mary who had 7 demons cast out of her. I don't know what those demons were.
How do you know it was the same Mary?
And how do we know it was the same Mary? We've made some assumptions. And we built this whole character, which is common for humans to build a duality. We have an Adam and Eve, for example. And this does come as well from a patriarchal perspective. We have the good man and the evil woman. We have Adam, we have Eve. We have Jesus, who's his counterpart, Mary. And we built mythologies around this woman, who likely did not exist, and definitely not in the way we assume. And so again, we have to come back to what Jess was asking there, we have to come with a critical thinking mind, or we'll miss these details. And they are important. If we assume that Mary was a prostitute, then we can go into a whole lot of assumptions about what that means about who Jesus was. But there are assumptions each step of the way. Did he save a prostitute? Or was she a good woman who bankrolled his ministry? Was she his wife? We don't know. And to just assume certain things means we cut off the potential for knowledge and growth. Thank you. Well, is that what, do you agree that she's the most talked about other than Jesus?
Well, I feel that's, you hear a lot about Mary. I just don't know about Mary, who Mary. But I believe, I personally believe that Mary was
And by the way, we do know that she was one of the ladies, and it was ladies too. Interesting, in a patriarchal society, it was ladies who bankrolled Jesus' ministry. It was ladies who funded the work of Jesus and the apostles as they traveled around. And we never think about it. Yeah, that does take money, doesn't it? She was one of the ones who funded it.
And you're going to watch a man speak.
Well,
That's pretty,
yeah, okay. You want to get into the foot washing issue? Nah.
we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Okay. Because actually, that was the different Mary who anointed his feet. That wasn't Mary of Magdalene. Yes,
I
something.
just had a question. In the Bible, there's a lot of promotion of peace and building unity with mankind, but there's also a verse in there where Jesus had mentioned, he's not here to bring peace but a sword. What did he mean by that, and why is it so different from the other messages that seem to be portrayed within the Bible?
When Jesus said, I've come not to bring peace but a sword, I've come to divide father against son, mother against daughter, brother against brother, I don't believe he was talking as a revolutionary, brandishing a sword ready for a fight. I believe what he was talking about was the reality that the message of peace will naturally, given our fallen state, will naturally bring strife. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, to use another example that's very more recent in our minds, wouldn't carry a weapon. He outright refused. He was encouraged to carry a gun, to have a gun at home to protect his family. He refused. He spoke a message of peace, of brotherhood, and because of that, he died. Direct link. Because he spoke of peace, he died. Because he spoke of peace, cities turned their firemen with hoses against young people. Because he spoke of peace, people went to jail. People were hurt. Because he spoke of peace, a sword came. Because Jesus spoke of peace, of God's peace. And we tend to assume that peace is the absence of fighting. But God's peace is something very different. God's peace, for example, is spoken of in the prophets, that everyone shall sit under his or her own fig tree and no one will ever be afraid. The lion shall lie down with the lamb. The world order that we see in God's peace is turned upside down. And so as Jesus is preaching what we may call this upside down message, strife follows. A son will turn against the father because of the message. A daughter against the mother because of the message. So when he says, I've come not to bring peace but a sword, I think he is pointing out to his disciples, to his followers, the staunch reality that this is not going to be an easy journey. This is not going to be all flowers and love and joy. That it's going to be painful and it's going to be costly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions? Well, we're getting close to time to wrap up. I didn't give out nearly as many prizes as I thought I would. I'll have to save them for the next time. I'll say, hit me with your best shot. I'd love to do this every week, my friends, but that would be a pretty daring move, I'm sure. But I always say, if you're not living life on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
What was the battle for the pastor we said in our wedding? It should be so easy.
I'm sorry?
That was read at our wedding.
Oh. Passage. I can recite the vows.
Better.
The passage that was read at our wedding was love is patient, love is kind.
You had two though.
Oh, you stinker.
Whatever.
I remember. It was Jesus' statement that I bring, that man and woman are brought together as one. Now you can't argue.
Yeah.
She's going to go back and look at the tapes and see. Any others? One last question. I have time for one last one. Yes, Greg.
phrase throughout the Bible that you're most?
I love this question. What is the most written phrase in the Bible? The most spoken command by God as well is do not be afraid. And I saw on Facebook, I think it might have even been you, Marie, put up a picture that said, it's said in the Bible 365 times, as if we need a reminder from God once a day to not be afraid. Thank you. Thank you, folks. I hope this has been enjoyable for you as well. And please feel free to give me your feedback as well. If you like this, I love playing Stump the Preacher. I love being put on the spot. I love having to think on my toes. It really makes my day. It gives me energy. So give me your feedback. If you enjoyed today, then let me know, and we can think about doing more Stump the Preacher. But in the meantime, now let's take a time